Well, I hope everyone can hear that. That was thanks to Jonathan Kirsting. This is Audrey Rousseau. Welcome to Business as Usual, midweek. We have a great show. And Jonathan was riffing off of a theme of our guest. I'll introduce Hayden Cardiff in a moment. And that was Trucking by the Grateful Dead. So Jonathan's definitely dating himself. And we can see we're going to be talking about trucking today, but we're going to be talking with Idelic. So I want to thank everyone for being here today. We are always excited to talk to people who are building amazing companies right in Pittsburgh in our backyard and telling the stories to the world. Today is definitely no exception. As you know, Jonathan Kirsting's with us today, and he's Vice President of all things media and marketing for the Tech Council. And thanks to Huntington Bank for their support and belief in us for over a year, as well as our nonprofit 40 by 80. That's the wholly owned subsidiary of the Tech Council, and that's our charitable arm. And you're going to hear more about some of the work that we're doing there, including apprenticeship programs. So we've muted your microphones, and we've done that on purpose. And this is an opportunity for you to just pay attention to our guest. This is not an opportunity for you to sell your wares. We have lots of opportunities for that. So let's just focus on the topic at hand and riff off of a little bit of the song by the Grateful Dead, Truckin'. We have Hayden Cardiff. He's no stranger to the tech community. He is someone that we're pretty thrilled at having conversations with. We've talked to him before on our podcast as well as on our radio. So we've kept close tabs to what they've been up to and how they're growing. And he's gonna talk about what's happening. There's a lot of new news. He's gonna talk about his company and his journey and how he became, a master in trucking, which he never imagined 15 years ago. I would guess. I wouldn't imagine. Maybe when you were little, you were playing with trucks, but maybe now. So Hayden, thank you so much for being with us today. And really, before we jump in and talk about Idelic, I really want to spend a few minutes just talking about, let everyone get to know you a little bit. Who is Hayden? And this is not your first startup. This is not your first rodeo. You've definitely been someone who's developed products and brought them to market and successfully. So we're pretty excited about some news that's happened in terms of investment in your company. But we really want to just understand, who is Hayden? Who's Hayden the man? And a little bit about your journey.
Audrey, thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciate this. Jonathan as well, and to the Tech Council as a whole. So thank you so much for that introduction. Very flattering. Obviously, master of trucking is something that we're still working on, but trucking nerd nonetheless. So yeah, I mean, to your point, if you would have asked me 15 years ago if trucking would have ever been my occupation, I would have told you you're crazy. It just was never on my radar until I had a good fortune of being able to dive into the industry. I actually helped start another company in the trucking space called Hylion, and it was a really eye-opening experience for me. Talking about who I am as a person, I'm a good old boy. I was born and raised in Kentucky, and so diving into the trucking industry, it felt at home, just because of how genuine the people are and how real and authentic they are. And they're just really, really good, just good professionals. That's one of the things that I admire most, especially around the truck driver, is just how much of a consummate professional they are. And they love their job. They love being the backbone of the industry and backbone of our country, and being able to ship all of the things that we need on a daily basis. You start looking at some of the things that have happened just over the last year through the pandemic. I mean, when everyone had the absolute right to feel apprehension and need for their own safety and their own health and well-being, these drivers were out there every single day, day in and day out, shipping everything that we needed to keep some semblance of normalcy going. So again, I love the industry now. It is such a fantastic place to be in. So yeah, happy to be here. So
you had a company though. You had a company before this.
I
right?
did. I had a couple, and the traditional founder journey. It took a lot of I took a lot of lumps to get here. Started another company called Nebulous, which was a music and technology company, and so selling to musicians and selling into the music industry is not the easiest thing to do. But hey, we were dreamers, and we wanted to change the world in something that we felt excited and passionate about. So that was actually what brought me to Pittsburgh in the first place. So I wanted to get higher education. So I wanted to go to grad school, and Carnegie Mellon had a music and technology degree program. They would never let me in, but at least if I was going to find someone smart enough to be able to help me build what I had envisioned of building, I was going to find it here. So somehow found my way into the Carnegie Mellon Tepper School of Business for my master's program, and was able to find some incredibly sharp and bright people looking at solving the same thing that I was interested in solving. And so we dove in, and we took advantage of every single Pittsburgh CMU startup tool and resource possible. I mean, we went through Project Olympus, we went through Alpha Lab, we went through the Swartz Center, and we got investment from Innovation Works. I mean, you name it, we were in it, and we were trying. And so we used all of those resources, and it was just a terrific journey and a fantastic learning experience for me. Because again, we made every single startup mistake you can make. And so, unfortunately, we had to wind it down. A lot of that due to just really good technology, but we didn't have clear product vision, or who we were actually selling to, or what the value prop was to them, and was it a market big enough for people to buy? Pretty important things to start a company. So we ended up rolling that down, and I jumped in with a colleague there at CMU and started Hyliion, taking electric vehicle technology and adding it to the trailer of an 18-wheeler for fuel savings. And so that was my first foray into the trucking industry. And it was, again, like I said, it was fantastic, and got to know a lot of different players within the industry. One in particular, got to know the team at Pitt Ohio Express really well. And so I ended up leaving Hyliion, but started working with the team at Pitt Ohio, which is a large carrier here in Pittsburgh. And while wrapping up my MBA at CMU, did some consulting work for them, where I ultimately spun out Idelic from them. So it has been a long and circuitous journey, but here we are, and excited to be here.
It's great story. It's really a great point about having to love your customers too. I mean, that's I love your candor on that. So let's talk about Idelic. What is Idelic? What's the history? You spun it out of Pitt, Ohio.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah. So one of the things that has really been a huge boost for us and our success as a whole is just the fact that we are mission driven, right? Like, if we only have one life to live, and we obviously spend a lot of that time working. So you might as well enjoy what you do and have an impact on the world. And that's what we do here at Idelic. We help drivers come home safe each and every night. And that's not just drivers and trucking fleets that we work with, but also you and I, our families, everyone that shares the road with them. And so one of the biggest issues that these fleets face is the fact that they are rolling down the highways with pieces of equipment that can be very dangerous if not operated correctly. And again, these drivers are fantastic professionals, and so they bear such a strong burden. So there's a lot of data and insights that helps these fleets understand the performance of these drivers, but the data is in disparate systems. It's not pulled together. It doesn't help them be proactive or predictive in any way. Also, the drivers can oftentimes feel disengaged. There's a huge amount of turnover in the industry. On average, about 90% each and every year across the industry. Wow. So yeah, imagine your entire workforce turning over every single year. Like, that implication on operations, that implication on safety and risk, it's huge. And so what we do at Idelic is provide a driver management platform, a software solution for these fleets to tie in all those systems together. We leverage machine learning and AI to help understand driver risk, and then ultimately allow the fleets to do something about that, allow them to assign corrective action and coaching, to engage with their drivers in a more meaningful way, to really humanize the data and really provide a much more personal connection with those drivers, so that we can help shape the career path for those, again, consummate professionals. And so those are all huge benefits that we provide around accident reduction, claims reduction, insurance reduction, and even driver turnover reduction. So that, in a nutshell, is ultimately
Right.
what we do.
So what did you see during the pandemic? Were there any things that you saw? I mean, obviously supply chain, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
tell us what you've seen that you could share.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag. It's all over the place, because we had some fleets that customers or prospects that we were calling into, that were, again, hit really hard by who they were ultimately supplying. You talk about the auto industry, you talk about restaurant industry, oil and gas industry, and we had fleets that we were talking to that were really excited about what we were doing, but then oil prices just tanked. So it's like, we're furloughing all of our drivers. We can't do anything right now. So come back to us in, a year, right? That was one side of the extreme. And the other side, we had fleets who were just absolutely running with their hair on fire, because they had so much demand that they couldn't stop and take a breath. I mean, it was fantastic. Like, we've got some really, really good. The team over at Frito-Lay is fantastic. I got to give a shout out to Mari Roberts and her whole team. And just talking with her on kind of what happened throughout the pandemic was really amazing to see. Just they're obviously with Frito-Lay, the summertime, especially around 4th of July, is a huge time for them. That's their biggest kind of sales. And they have weeks on weeks to prep for that. They were hitting record numbers in April and May, that record numbers that they've never seen before, with no prep time, and they had to make it happen, right? Like, and that's the beauty of this industry is you've got just creativity and ingenuity across the board of being able to keep things in, keep stores stocked with no prep time. And so we saw a lot of that variability. Some fleets just running way, way too much. Some fleets having to kind of figure out how to keep drivers even on the road. And so it was definitely a challenging time for the industry. But again, that's one of the beautiful things about trucking and logistics is it's incredibly resilient. It is, again, the backbone of our economy. And so no matter what happens, they're running. They have to. For us, for our sakes, they've got to run. And so there's obviously a lot of nuance and change in there. But I think the optimism around the recovery and optimism around consumer spending has definitely turned to the positive. We've had several months of really high rates, really high growth, really high spending in trucking as far as new equipment and trailer sales and things like that, all good indicators of positive momentum for the economy as a whole.
So it's interesting because, I mean, Jonathan and I can tell you this whole thing about having conversations with people about paper products and toilet products and et cetera. Yeah. I don't recall anyone talking about the influx of demand for Frito products. But I guess, but I guess you're probably right. Comfort food, right? High carbs, people are home. And, well, what do you think the impact has had, like, in terms of the Suez Canal and, some of the issues around offshoring? Do you have any views on all that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously global supply chain is heavily interconnected. But again, one of the things I'll say is the logistics industry is so big and is so heavily relied upon from the world that it's their job to figure it out, right? Like, obviously that's going to put delays on certain products, especially coming from Europe and things like that. But like it is, I mean, the industry is so resilient that they figure ways to keep things at least as much as possible running normally. And so what we found is, yes, there are backups in certain ports and certain areas for certain things, but think on the whole, things have been running fairly smoothly, especially in the United States, across the board, which is obviously good to see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm optimistic. I'm bullish on the United
Yeah.
States in terms of, what this industry that you're in, that I
Yeah.
think people are just, public companies are talking at the board level, what is going on in terms of supply chain. So you have, here we have some questions, Jonathan.
Yeah, some good ones here. Want to know, first off, how's a guy like you who's living the entrepreneurial life, how have you benefited from having a traditional MBA?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, one of the things that is really critical is the network and connection. Like CMU is phenomenal. I cannot say enough good things about it. Just from, so I went to a small undergrad down in South Louisiana, so down the bayou. And I went there to play football. I loved it, had a great time. But my view of the world was very myopic. In what my own abilities would be able to provide, what the world had to offer. Coming to a place like Carnegie Mellon, coming to a place like Pittsburgh as a whole, with the racial diversity and all of the things that make it such a special place, just incredibly opened my eyes. Like it was a very enlightening experience to kind of go through that. And one, just to see like the world of possibilities open up, but two, see the networks and the connections that I could make and the impact that I could have on some of those different realms was really important to me in my personal development and growth. So that was one of the big benefits. Again, like has nothing to do with like the actual classroom itself, but again, a huge benefit of going to a program like the MBA, like the Tepper School of Business. But as far as like the education side of things, it was absolutely critical in how it helped me think critically. It helped me think through and tie in how everything is interconnected. And when it comes to marketing and sales and product and engineering and customer success and business development and strategy, like all those things have to work together and coalesce into a cohesive strategy. But also, like one of the things that I really appreciate, about Carnegie Mellon, the Swartz Center, like all of those different pieces, like they've helped me understand both from a firsthand experience and otherwise that you're going to get your butt kicked a lot trying to start a company, and you have to be resilient. You have to think quickly. You have to be incredibly humble to the aspect of you've got to be able to pivot, like, and know when an idea or your company as a whole is not working, and you've got to be able to jump and pivot and move and adapt to be able to find the thing that does resonate and find the thing that does work. And so that was definitely a huge piece. And obviously, like the educational side of it, understanding and learning a base layer across all those different disciplines is huge. But I think the biggest thing is just like being surrounded by excellence, like you get in those kind of top tier programs, just from the staff, the classmates, like just that general understanding of like, we're all going to go off and do something amazing. Like that level of like push definitely helped to, again, kind of broaden the horizons.
Very cool. So what are your thoughts on, you think of companies like Locomotion that are, automating, trucking and the impact of like electric vehicles and so forth? How's that going to kind of change the industry moving forward?
Both of those things, electric vehicles and also automation, are both already changing the industry for the better. And we're huge fans of that. I know early on when we were going through a lot of our, investment rounds and pitches to VCs and things like that, we got a lot of questions and skepticism around, well, if you're, your driver management platform, what happens when there's no drivers in the truck? It's like, all right, well, like in 20 or 30 years, sure, we'll like that, we'll talk about some of those different things. But, I think one of the things that we often see though is there is a movement towards automation. There is a movement towards autonomous. It's going to take a while, just like we saw in the airline industry. Like even right now, today, we still have pilots in those planes. For 95% of what happens in that plane, it is on autopilot. But the pilot is still there even today for takeoff and landing. The same thing is going to ultimately happen for trucking. First mile, last mile deliveries, those things are very, very challenging problems to solve. And so you're going to need someone in that truck, even if you do ultimately solve the problem, you need someone there for exception management. With that being said, there is a movement towards autonomy with class 2, 3, and 4 levels of technology. Your lane departure assist, your adaptive cruise control, roll stability, those types of things, very much autonomous technology. So at Idelic, we're excited to be able to help facilitate that movement towards that type of technology, because the big issues with the industry right now are fleets themselves don't fully know and understand how to really underwrite towards the ROI of that, right? Like, because it's still relatively unproven as far as what the actual benefits are going to come from that. So like if I'm making the spend and the effort towards maintaining those types of technologies on my truck, what is the ROI going to get? Still not as concrete as the industry would like. And also from an insurance perspective, how do insurance carriers actually underwrite towards the claims or underwrite toward the price of the programs that they're putting forth with that type of technology? So at Idelic, we're excited to be able to help facilitate both of those, understand because we understand what safe drivers and safe fleets look like today. We can understand what the impact of those technologies looks like within the fleets. Same thing with helping to underwrite the impact of that from an insurance perspective as well. So obviously we're excited to be able to help facilitate that transition over the next several decades.
Very cool. That actually leads to a really good question here from Ingrid Cook. And she listened to our podcast, which makes me excited. We talked about the $20 million raise you guys had, which we still need to talk about. So you mentioned technology to help you drive down operating expenses and combined ratios for insurers. Can you share more on this? And will underwriters now use driver safety score to price commercial insurance?
Absolutely. Ingrid, good to see you again. Thanks for the question. So yes, I mean, that's commercial auto is struggling as a whole. So I mean, you start to look at some of the data. I mean, 2019 is when we had like the most holistic from the most recent year. They were $4 billion in losses as an industry. And that's just in the US alone. They were operating on a 118 combined ratio. And what that means is for every dollar of premiums the insurance carrier is getting in from their customers, they're paying out $1.18 in costs and claims.
Oh.
So it is not a winning combination,
No.
and it's not tenable, right? Like there are a few insurance carriers that are under that one in that 94-95 ratio, which is good, but the vast majority are not. And so with that being the case, they're looking for ways to better understand driver risk, fleet risk, and be able to better underwrite towards that. And especially in the commercial side, the issue that they're running up against today is the fact that you have these large runaway nuclear verdicts that are just ballooning costs. And the issue is not whether the driver was at fault or not, but whether that fleet did everything they needed to do to be fully compliant, both with government regulations, but also with their own handbook and safety practice and protocols. Like if there's any type of T not crossed, I not dotted, the plaintiff's attorneys now are able to put the fleet on trial and say, you need to punish this fleet because even though this driver wasn't at fault, the next one will be because they have systematic issues. You need to punish them, send them a lesson, teach them a lesson. And that's just absolutely blowing up these different costs for the carriers and also the fleets themselves. And so one of the things that traditional underwriting doesn't take into account is the fleet's safety program, the fleet's compliance program. And we have all that information, both from a granular level, driver telematics or camera events, the moving violations or citations, accidents, claims, injuries, work comp, customer complaints, driver demographics, like everything. So we have all that granular level driver information, but also when you start to go into how fleets use our product, it starts to go into that overarching safety culture. And that's another thing, are they managing their training consistently? Are they managing their escalation process consistently? Like those things that would give them a higher risk for nuclear verdicts are inside of our program. and we can then help to underwrite based off of that. So that's definitely the trajectory that we're moving towards.
So, I do want to talk about this current raise that you have. If you can talk about, your investors and what it means, what it really means for you, and where you see yourself as a result of this cash infusion.
Absolutely. So we are incredibly fortunate, and I cannot talk about this raise without giving just a huge shout out to our team for all of their tireless effort and work in getting us here. Our terrific customers who have been with us at every turn, the good and the bad along the way, kind of going through the bumps of startup life. But also, our board and our current investor group has been phenomenal. Birchmere Ventures and Sean Sebastian were the first people to really dive in, believe in us, believe in our mission. Sean is still on the board. He's been fantastic and a great asset to Pittsburgh as a whole. But also, TDF Ventures, Origin Ventures, SAS and M25, they've all been really good, helpful guidances along the way. But this round is definitely taking us to another level. Right. And we have to rise to that occasion, which is exciting because we're now at a different tier group. Right. We did bring on $20 million, which is obviously exciting from a cash infusion standpoint. Yes. But one of the things that I'm most excited for is the fact that we brought on terrific partners. So we brought on Highland Capital Partners, who out of Boston, just a terrific firm, 3 decades worth of experience. And Craig Driscoll is going to join the board, and he's absolutely phenomenal. He constantly talks about surrounding us with excellence and just the hiring and the talent level that we need to continue to infuse inside of the company to continue to again, be able to achieve and reach those next levels of success. And so obviously we are hiring. We're very excited to hire in a lot of different areas. When you talk about product and engineering, customer success, data science, sales and marketing, and so, across the entire board, we've got open positions. So please, if you're interested, come on board. We're doing life-changing things. We'd love to have you. But also, this round is really going to allow us to continue to execute on the plan. And the plan is obviously core growth, more drivers, operating safely out on the roads, more customers and fleets under our purview to be able to help them reduce injuries, reduce claims, reduce accidents, driver turnover, all those different things. But also we talked about insurance, because not only do we bring Highland Capital into the round, we also brought AXA Venture Partners into the round. AXA being a large insurance company out of France, they have a venture capital arm here in the States. And we are elated to have them on board just because of one, Manish, who's the one that we've been working, the partner we've been working with, CMU grad. So we had that Pittsburgh connection there as well. But also just their understanding of obviously the insurance industry, but also their work with past portfolio companies and doing exactly what we want to do, which is help insurance carriers leverage the data that we have, that our customers have, to better underwrite and price that risk for the benefit of those fleets, right? Like the issue is good fleets get worse rates because of bad operating companies. So we want to right that wrong. And then obviously, taking that a step further, actually being the underwriting engine for the commercial auto industry to be able to license out those types of models, since we have that data to, again, better underwrite and price that risk. So that is, a game changer for the industry, because they don't have anything remotely in that vein, and they're suffering because of it. So obviously very excited about that and the trajectory of what this round is going to allow us to do. That's
great. So we have been staying close to you over the last couple of years, and we're excited, not just for, Idelic, but for you as well, that with the juice that you bring to all of this and the passion, and that you're building it here with the hope of making, the world a little bit better. And I think that they're exciting times. So hopefully you've been vaccinated and that you're getting out into the world. And I hope that we see you in 6 months, I would say 6 months, I'd like to come back and just say, what do you say, Jonathan? And do like a litmus test and check in.
Let's do it. Let's
See,
schedule
just see what you're up to see how the community can be connected to you. There's lots of people that probably want to partner with you and have some ideas in terms of creating, additive opportunities.
And I want the trucker hat, Audrey. I want the trucker hat.
Yeah, we'll be wearing our Grateful Dead shirts, and we're really, happy about trucking. But honestly, Hayden, you've been a real mensch to the community. There are comments in here about you being a great mentor over at the Sports Center. So it looks like you give back as well as what you pull in.
I appreciate that. And Sonia and Dave, Mawini, and the whole team over at the Sports Center is absolutely fantastic. If you're interested in entrepreneurship, if you have ties to CMU, please go check them out. They are just fantastic individuals, but also just wise people as far as helping you get not only your business off the ground, but continuing to navigate all the landscape that comes forward. But I mean, we've been so fortunate here in Pittsburgh, here with all the resources that we've been able to have. We can't not give back. And I know, Nick Bartel, who's also a sports fellow, CMU alum. He's another one that gives liberally of his time. And so I got to give him a good shout out as well, because wouldn't be here without him and Andrew Russell, another co-founder and CMU alum as well. But yeah, we love the support that we get from the Tech Council, from Pittsburgh as a whole. Obviously, a terrific place to have a company, to recruit and have just terrific talent come in. So we love it, and we're neighbors, obviously, over
right. We're neighbors on the north side. Yeah, but it sounded like you just accepted an award from the Academy with all the people that you thanked.
Well, I mean, it feels like an award, because startups are an inherently risky business.
Absolutely.
Knowing the failure rates that happen, just because it is not like you have to have so much tenacity and an idea and just great people, and everything has to happen correctly. Plus, you have to get lucky with market dynamics and customers and the right partners along the way. Like, there's so many things that goes into it. So for us to have gotten to this point, there are just way too many people to thank, because it's not just myself, it's not just our founding team. It really took a lot to get here, and we're very appreciative for all the help.
Well, Hayden, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to do a 6-month check-in. I'll put that on my calendar. See
Looking forward to
how you're doing. We'll see you before that, I'm sure, but it'll be nice to see what this infusion of capital and trust has done for you and your company. So thank you for taking the time today. Jonathan, what do we have on board? What's coming up?
Well, tomorrow we have the mayor of Newcastle, Chris Fry, stopping by. He's got a really interesting background in social work, and see him kind of take some civic leadership by becoming mayor is going to be a really cool conversation.
That's great. Well, thank you. Thank you all. Hayden, stay safe. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.
Keep on trucking, everybody.
Thank you much.